exciting camera angle. I got a haircut. The end. So the reason we didn't play last week, pretty obvious. We were very sick. Turns out I'm a really good method actor because I actually got sick. But hey, 5 days later I feel great. And we played a lot of Monster Hunter Wilds, and it's good. I would say it's pretty good. What's your take? It's good.
It's good.
It's good. All right.
It's really good.
Now
Undercooked was good.
Undercooked, really?
Yeah.
What do you feel like? I mean, this isn't going to be about us reviewing Monster Hunter, but like, what? Without too many spoilers, like what's not cooked about it?
I mean, one, there's no gathering hub.
Uh-huh.
They're about to add one. Two, there's no elder dragons at all.
Mm-hmm.
And they're missing those monsters.
What if? Yeah. Okay, keep going.
There's some key quality of life features that are obvious that they're missing. And so the consensus here, and everybody feels that they got the game out because the financial quarter was going to end, and they wanted that boost before the financial quarter, so that's why they got it out. And a lot of that stuff is becoming like in the next 3 months.
Oh, yeah.
Which they already said that all that stuff is coming in like the next 3 months.
It's secretly a live service game. But as a Sea of Thieves kid, that, the only thing we could do for the first year the game was out was collect chickens and kill each other. And nowadays there's so much to do that I don't even play it anymore because I get overwhelmed by all the things there are to do. Like, I know that the next 3 years are going to be bananas. Like, this is going to sound crazy, I'm kind of happy it's Undercooked. Because I want them to slowly release stuff. I don't want to be consuming everything in the first, 2 weeks and then have nothing to do. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I've actually gotten... I'm kind of ashamed to say this. I've kind of gotten into a thing where I like the slow release live content format.
Drip feed.
Yeah, the drip feed. Yeah, I like that. One, because I don't have the time to consume it all right away. Which is fine. So for me, everything's a slow drip or whatever. But when you don't have the time to consume it all, and everyone else has already done everything there is to do in the game in the first 48 hours, it feels kind of bad. It feels kind of bad. And I feel like game designers and companies are starting to pick up on that, where they're like, oh wow, these people are fucking crazy. They're so sad out there. They're looking for any dopamine they could find. If we give them the whole game up front, they're going to eat it all. It would be like asking my dogs to portion out their own food. You know what I'm saying? He'd eat till his stomach exploded, right? And he'd die. So you have to be okay, you get one bowl every now and then. Now here you go. And I feel sadly, that's where we're at. With games and stuff. It's kind of nuts. Anyways, all right. A fair review, and I agree, but I agree in that I like that. So
I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
Yeah. So we're back to do vodcasts. We've done several vodcasts about boss monster design. We've done several vodcasts about TTRPG Monster Hunter. We've even done Monster Hunter boss design. I believe we have done this before. Maybe. We've been trying to find our way towards a more exciting Pathfinder 2e boss. The general consensus that I have found amongst GMs of Pathfinder is that it is difficult to find and make a memorable boss. The math in the system is very tight, and it's very good at almost all the things that you could ever want it to do, but you have to, and this was the same issue that 4th edition has, the same issue that every game has, really. It's very difficult to design a boss that's right for every group, right? And when you're publishing an adventure, when you're writing an adventure, you want to have a one-stop shop solution, right? You don't want to have a section next to every boss that says, if your group is actually only 3 people, if your group is 5 players, if your group is 6 players, if your group only has healers, if your group has no fighters, right? You don't want to have to include like a how-to boss guide with every published adventure that you make. I mean, the Paizo, they don't even want to have maps bigger than one piece of paper. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're trying to save space in this digital world. So like, it's very hard, I think, for the system to give you a good boss fight, right? To give you a good boss fight. Especially with people coming in from 5e and they've got 5 people at the table, or some crazy bastard I heard has 2 games with 6 people playing Pathfinder. Disgusting. Should take away that guy's license. Like, you can't just run out of the box, in my opinion, what their GM core tells you is a good boss fight and have it actually feel like a memorable boss fight. You can come close. You can definitely come close. And I've been in some fights as a player, and I've had some fights as a GM where it was like pretty damn cool. But that's almost always because the dice were telling a story, or there was more going on than just the boss, right? It was happening in a really cool area with like environmental effects. The boss had support, right? There was just like more going on.
The goal was not just the boss.
Right, and the goal was not just the boss. But sometimes you want to have a kick-ass boss fight where the boss is the fight, right? The boss is the encounter, right? And so that's where we've been trying to get back to with Pathfinder 2e. We want to have those fights. We want to have Monster Hunter fights, really. Someone pointed out in Discord, Monster Hunter is 90% boss fights. Like, yeah, like the other 10% is fishing, fashion, and walking to the boss. Like, that's the game, right? So you want to be able to fight the boss and have it be a kick-ass fight the whole way through, good stuff happening the whole time, pacing, up and down roller coaster. You want it to be a memorable and exciting fight. Raw Pathfinder 2e can't do that, in my opinion. It just can't. And I've looked around and I've watched videos from other content creators and stuff like that, and it always comes down to house ruling, home brewing, and of course custom building to your group, right? Custom building to your group. With all the Monster Hunter we've been playing, it's got me thinking about solo bosses more than ever. Now, I've been cooking something for my 3 games off stream in the background where I'm trying to reinvent the Paragon monster from Giphy Glyph Paragon and the 5e days, and I'm trying to bring it over. And I am very close to what I think. This is still theory crafting. I'm running my first one on Thursday. We're only 1 round in, so I can't really say, like, it's great. Because they don't know yet. But like during Extra Life, we did a lot of hazard bosses that you've designed, which is essentially disguising 3 monsters as 1 monster, right? And then or a monster and 2 hazards, or a monster, a hazard, and another monster. You know, basically a trio. 2
to 3 creatures disguised as 1 creature.
Right, and I know that you have run several of them. You've done some one-shots to test them. You've run them in your actual campaign on Tuesday. You've been using them to try to do the Monster Hunter stuff. You've done 2 playtests of that. I, myself, built and ran some during Extra Life. I think it's good. I do think it's good. I don't think it was what I want, like, at the end of the day. It didn't have... So like, if a boss fight was like a Geiger counter, right, or whatever, you know, like it's, you know, the little line that's going, right? Mm-hmm. I want it to be like that, right? I want it to be up and down, but returning to like a median level through the whole fight. I feel like Hazard fight, it's a steady decline, because like as you are defeating the add-ons, right, like the extra parts, the overall difficulty goes down, and I don't want at any point any boss fight to get easier the longer you're in the fight. I never want that to happen. So for me, it doesn't deliver what I'm after when I'm trying to design and run like a boss fight. Like, I want it to be almost always right in the middle, and then there are spikes throughout, and the major spikes come from the players having a party member downed, right? So the difficulty spikes not because of anything that the monster did, but because the natural flow of combat, someone dropped, now it's going to get a lot harder because now they're losing that action economy. They're having to decide if they pop that person back up, when they pop that person back up, is it safe to do that? So like that field medic kind of like save an ally on the battlefield, that creates the sudden spike, and then it goes back once they get that person back up to normal. Like, that's kind of what I'm looking for. Are there moments where things get out of hand, out of control? Yeah, and I think for most of the time, I just want that to be good dice rolls and bad decisions suddenly spike like the difficulty back up, or make the difficulty go down, right? Like if they play really smart and then they bamboozle the boss and they get the boss in a good strategy, or the boss just rolls like a river troll, right? And then it's suddenly really easy. But ultimately, it can level back out. So it's going to be just this constant flux where it stays from start to finish, from the very first damage to the very last damage. I want it to be at the similar level throughout the fight.
I guess,
and I don't think Hazard is going to provide that.
I guess so for me, whether it's multiple creatures or one creature, the fight's never going to get easier or harder, because at the end of the day, both parties are spending resources, right? So like players are getting hit and spending resources to heal, to stay alive, right? Or using what they need to do to pick up people. The boss monster is using whatever it has to try and beat them. If it's a spellcaster, it's using spell slots and stuff like that. So the idea is that as the fight's going on, as the monster is losing parts and losing some action economy, the players are also spending so many resources to get rid of that action economy and those parts. And so at the end of the day, once it gets down to the low wire, both people are so maybe the line went down, but it went down for both sides. And so they're still at the same level of difficulty. Whereas with a single monster, if it's not losing any resources throughout the entire fight but HP, then it's going to get harder as the fight goes on, not easier, because as the players use resources and spend resources, and to the point where like, how are we going to heal? That one shot might actually kill somebody instead of them having a reaction to it. Right. Then you are getting like players get demoralized like when that happens, because then they're like, there's nothing I could do. We're not going to do anything. There's nothing I could do. There's nothing we could do here, right?
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just don't feel like those are players that I would want at my table. Like, if the monster's action economy goes down, the only way that the party's action economy ever goes down is if a player is killed. Do you know what I'm saying? So
when the players go down, their action economy goes down too, because they have to try
but they have the action economy to get back up. Like, a monster can't heal a part once the part is gone, right? So if you tie their action economy to the part itself, right? If the part is generating action economy, this is where my work that I'm working on right now with the Paragon stuff versus the Hazard stuff is trying to kind of take that into account. So like, anyways, that's kind of the setup for it. Is I'm just trying to say that like, I don't want to tie the action economy to individual actors, right, in the scene. Like, I don't want there to be a way to remove the action economy. I want there to be a way to influence the action economy. So that's kind of the direction that I'm trying to take this. So I'll go through mine. You said you were still working on yours?
I mean, I have got everything in my head, so I can walk through it. But yeah, go ahead. And
Okay. So I got this Rathalos. The idea was to make a level 12 monster suitable as a solo boss for for 5 level 10 PCs. So right off the bat, it's a dragon. It's got the fire trait. all that jazz. Because there's no such thing as dragon type damage in Pathfinder, I was just going to use spirit damage, because spirit damage feels, kind of like dragon damage. That's the only weakness a Rathalos has, right? Is dragon.
Electricity too.
Really? In Wilds, it only listed him as having dragon. All right. Well, we might add electricity in there then. So the first mechanic is breaking parts. So the Rathalos is a multi-part monster. Players could target and break specific parts of the body. Unless an attacker specifically targets a part of the Rathalos, the attack is always made to the body. To encourage strategically attacking parts, the Rathalos will have significant damage resistance to physical damage on its body. Now, physical damage, right? So you're still going to be able to do shitload of damage with the other stuff. Rathalos begins the fight with resistance 15 to physical damage. So it's just all physical damage, resistance 15 on its body. However, Rathalos is going to have 4 parts that we're tracking instead of the 8 that are in the video game. So it's going to have the head, the body, the wings, and the tail. Skipping down, it's going to have 360 health. 360 health seems like a pretty large amount of health, but with 5 players, 360 on a solo monster is actually pretty appropriate for the amount of health that you would want for 5 players. Based on what I've been working with and what I've been seeing, especially using the young adult red dragon and the adult red dragon, which are CR10 and CR14, and kind of finding a sweet spot in between, and then increasing it for 5 players. So the threshold to break the different parts is 60 for the head, the wings, the tail, and then 180 for the body. The head has no resistance to bludgeoning. The wings have no resistance to piercing. And the tail has no resistance to slashing, which thematically makes sense. Now, I know in the game you could pierce tail to cut it off, blah, blah. This is a different game inspired by the video game, etc., etc. If you break the head, it has a -2 circumstance penalty to all bite attacks, and then there's other things that will be impacted as well. If you break the body, its armor class drops by 2. If you break the wings, it cannot stay aloft, and its fly speed is halved. So that means when you can't stay aloft, it means you have to land after you're done flying with your fly action, or you fall to the ground. So you're going to basically stop it from staying in the air, and then a lot of its moves are going to trigger off of already being in the air. So priority would definitely be to break its wings and then to chop off its tail, because if you break the tail's gone, and it can't use any strikes or moves that involve the tail. So breaking the head, kind of good, but not nearly as good as taking out the wings, taking out the tail. Now, different bosses would have different, themes, blah, blah, blah. The idea here is as you are breaking these parts, you are changing the way the monster can fight, right? So the monster is going to favor flying around out of range, peppering you with ranged attacks, opportunistically attacking you, staying out of reach, that kind of thing. But once you damage the wings, now it's much more limited in its mobility, it's stuck on the ground, and that kind of shifts the fight and shifts the way that the monster can fight. Fresh out of the box, the Rathian has like 15 different things it can do, the way I've designed it. So you don't really know what you're going to be dealing with at the beginning of the fight, because it could do anything. It's got incredible mobility, it's got flight, it's got all these different tail attacks, and once you start breaking it down, you aren't reducing its action economy so much as reducing the variety of actions that it has, essentially. So obviously you're going to want to track these parts individually, but damage done to any particular part is of course going to be done to the body, just like you were doing in your Monster Hunter game. All this is like inspired by the work that you did for your Monster Hunter thing, where it's like the different parts. And then of course the hazardous bosses as well. To target specific parts of the body, if you're in melee, the target has to be off guard. If you're attacking at range, you get a -2 circumstance penalty because you're making a called shot. So it's kind of like doing a non-lethal attack. Like, you're having to take a bit more care with the thing. That's to kind of balance out the fact that a ranged attacker can just take whatever shots they need to without having to worry about getting it off guard and stuff like that. Damage to a part is dealt to their total HP and also tracked on a part-by-part basis. And then, once you break 3 or more parts, the Rathalos loses all physical resistance. So the 15 resistance is gone. You've broken so much of its scales in its body. Now you can go ham on it. Now it's going to be very easy to burst that damage and finish it off, right? And then the way that the HP on the parts is designed is it coincides with hitting basically bloodied or beyond bloodied on the HP meter, right? So it's about the right time, midway through the fight-ish, where the monster is now suddenly more vulnerable to attacks. But in order, because my design idea is to try to keep it level the whole time, once you break those 3 parts, it becomes enraged, right? Just like in the game. And once it's enraged, it actually gets an extra Paragon action added to its Paragon economy, an extra Paragon point, to compensate for it not having those physical defenses anymore. So now you can deal damage to it very easily. It's lost 2/3 or more of its attack options, or probably at least 1, but I think 2 out of 3 at least, or all 3 of its cool attack options are gone. To make up for that, it's just going to fight more furiously than it was before. It's going to put in that effort to kind of bring that meter back up. So it starts to dip down again, and then it's going to start going back up. As far as mounting the monster goes, I'm going to mention that just briefly. I took what you had already worked on, and I just kind of moved it to be more skill focused. So what I was thinking is you have to be adjacent to the creature, 2 or more sizes larger than you to climb, and then use standard climbing rules. So if you've got skills that allow you to climb with 1 hand, skills that allow you to climb with no hands, spider climb, slippers, whatever, that gets taken into account. Even if you have a climb speed, you still have to make that athletics check against their passive reflex. Your GM tells you how far you'll have to climb to actually be on top of the monster. You have to climb it as if it was a surface that needed to be climbed. When you reach the top of the surface, you are considered to have mounted the monster. Once you're mounted on the monster, if the monster moves, you get moved with the monster. You don't have to do too much to avoid falling off unless the monster uses flying, swimming, or burrowing, because those are kind of extreme conditions. So you have to do a athletics or acrobatics DC against the creature's reflex to stay on the monster, and that won't count as a reaction. It's just kind of you moving with the monster when it moves. While mounted, mounting a monster for the first time during a turn counts as your balance for the turn, but after that, you do have to, you can have your hands free again, so you can pull out your weapon and start beating on it. You use your balance to move around on the monster, so you just do a straight up balance check. The DC of the balance check is the creature's reflex DC. If you critically fail, you fall off the monster. Every round that you're mounted, you do have to spend 1 action each turn to balance, even if you fail or decide not to move. But of course, if you critically fail, you do fall off the monster. If you do not spend 1 action to balance on your turn, you fall off the monster. So you could spend the action to balance, fail, which means you can't move anywhere, but that still kind of represents that you're keeping your balance on the monster. So
what does moving on the monster do?
So if the monster is large enough, you are not mounted in the same way that you would mount an actual mount, right? We're using the term mounted because it comes from the video game, but you are climbing on the monster, right? So your position on the monster is exactly where your miniature is. So if it's a 3x3 monster and you're in the bottom right and you want to be up in the top left, because then you'll be closer to the cleric so they could hit you with a heal spell, you would have to use a balance to get over to that part of the monster. Okay. So it kind of represents like transferring your character from one place to the other on the monster. And then if you fall off the monster, it's just standard falling from whatever height the GM tells you that the monster would be at, right? So if the monster is a huge monster, it might say you fall 15 feet, that sort of thing. And then your aerial mounting is fantastic. It's an attack with flourish tag. You're falling at least 10 feet onto a monster that is at least 1 size larger than you, so it's easier to mount. you can't climb a large creature if you're medium, but you can fall onto a large creature and mount it this way, which I think is kind of a nice compromise because this is a lot harder to set up, the aerial mounting. You either need to have incredible jumping, levitation, leaping off of a ledge. It really encourages you to do a lot of stuff. And then, like you said, you make a melee strike. If you critically succeed, you mount the monster and reduce the fall damage as if the height were 30 feet less. You had it that you just don't fall prone as a result of any damage you take from landing on the monster, which I think is good too. Either one would kind of work. Success, you mount the monster. Failure, you fail to mount the monster, keep falling. Critical failure, you fail to mount the monster, keep falling. And further, you trigger reactions as if you used a move or manipulate action adjacent to the monster. So as you try to mount the monster and you fly right past the monster, it can like take a reactive strike on you or something if it would be entitled to do so. So that's kind of my take on like the mount system, to try to like simplify it a bit and just make it focus on like skill feats that already exist in the game. I feel like if you were to run like a game where this is the focus of the game, like a Monster Hunter game, it would definitely be worth visiting like general feats and coming up with a few general feats that are like Mount Master, you balance as a free action every round, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So what part of what I was thinking when I did these was all those climbing feats and stuff like that will be used to set up the aerial mounting.
Right, and they definitely could be, and that's why I'm saying it has to be at least 2 sizes larger than you to climb.
Yeah.
Because like a large creature is going to be like, get off of me, no, you can't climb me. But a huge creature and you're medium, okay, I could see kind of finding a place on the monster that is not.
Yours reminds me of Dragon's Dogma.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. And I like having both in there. I like having both in there because it does reward different types of skills and different kinds of setups. All right, so let's move on to this Paragon system that I've been cooking up in the background. So Paragon system, a Paragon monster will have 1 or more Paragon action points. These refill at the start of a Paragon monster's turn. They are used to pay the cost of Paragon actions, Paragon reactions, and Paragon defenses. The Rathalos in this example have 3 Paragon points, which is suitable for a 5 PC party. Excuse me. So Paragon actions can be activated between the turns of 2 other creatures. Now, this is a change from 5e. I'm saying 2 other creatures because, like, I don't think we should let them Paragon before their turn or after their turn, right? So if it's Maya's turn and then we see next in initiative is the monster can't Paragon between Maya's turn and the monster's actual turn. Okay. Like, it would have to do it between Orin and Maya, but not between Maya and itself, right? It has to be 2 other creatures, right? I think that's good. I think that kind of cuts down on some of like the cheese combos that a Paragon monster might use, where it kind of sets itself up for success because it's going to Paragon into its own turn, kind of deal. Paragon actions can only be activated with Paragon action points. So they're going to be tagged differently than normal actions. So they're not going to be usable on the monster's like main turn. They're only going to be usable outside of its turn, which allows you to kind of study a little bit of like the rhythm of the fight, right? Of like, okay, we know it can't use that on its actual turn. So and the same deal on its actual turn, those moves are likely not going to be available as Paragon actions, and vice versa. So you kind of get like a flow of like what the monster could do on its actual turn versus what the monster could do outside of its turn, which is similar to the hazard thing, right? Where it's like, we know that hazard A can do these things, hazard B does these things, and those can only happen on those hazard turns. Paragon reactions, so these are in addition to the normal reaction a monster would get, or reactions if it's like a Hydra or something like that. But when you use a Paragon reaction, you do have to pay the cost, however many points it costs to activate that reaction, and that counts against the whole bank of points that you have. And then we got Paragon defenses. You take 5% of the monster takes 5% of its max HP, uses 1 Paragon point, only allowed to use it once per round. Basically, it allows it to strip away 1 ongoing effect. So it could be like a bleed, it could be a slow, any one thing that's on it that it wants to shake, it could do that once per round, essentially. But
would you consider making this, because I know Pathfinder likes to have counteract checks and stuff like that.
Right.
Would you think about doing it that way, or just have it, don't worry about any rolling dice, just make it do the thing and pay the HP?
I feel like we roll enough dice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, like I feel like we roll enough dice, and these monsters deliberately are going to have a bit more HP to be like a bigger challenge. So like, and I don't. It really depends on the GM that's running it, right? Like, you're not going to want to take 5% of your max HP to get rid of Frightened 1, right? Frightened 1's going to go away on its own, right? This is for like the things that are really shutting down the monster, right? Like shutting down the monster's design. Like getting grappled by a dragon centaur, right? Like you might just want to be like, fuck all that, right? Shake it. I'm going to shake it off. Just to kind of give that monster, that boss encounter, a chance to reset itself. And then when it does this, it is going to cause something thematic to the monster to happen, right? So in the case of like a Monster Hunter monster, it might roar, right? Because how many times have you been wailing on a monster and you got this perfect routine going and you're about to do like the finishing move on your combo and it roar at you and you're like, wah, and then you're like, you have to start the whole combo over again. Like that's kind of the idea. It's like it's sort of like get away from me kind of deal, a theme to the monster. All right, so Paragon fluctuations. Some Paragon monsters might gain or lose maximum Paragon points during a battle. So this is where, if you wanted to have the curve of the battle go steadily down or slightly down, right? You could say like, hey, once you have it bloodied, it only has 2 Paragon actions per round instead of 3. So if you prefer that sort of difficulty curve, you can do that just by taking away those Paragon actions throughout the fight. Or you could have conditions that are met during the battle. So did you throw out... This monster's got a really... This bad guy has a really weak ego. So if you Bon Mot him 3 times, he becomes so flustered about your insults. If you successfully Bon Mot him 3 times, he loses one of his Paragon actions for the rest of the fight. So you could have like mechanics like that where the Paragon economy is influenced by things that are happening during the fight, during the game. So I kind of like that as well. Like you have like a clockwork boss, you could have people that are trying to wind it down, and as they're winding it down, they're lowering that Paragon economy. So you can also have like mechanics in here that play with that action economy on a point by point basis, just by kind of having that bank that can either be filled or lowered. All right, so that's like the background for like the mechanics. And with those mechanics in place, this is what I cooked up. And this is kind of birthed from like the base 5 Red Dragon. So this is just the classic Red Dragon. So it's got a 50-foot speed, 120-foot flight speed. That's down 108 from 180 on the actual Red Dragon. It's got acrobatics, as all flying monsters should have. It's got athletics, as every monster should have. Intimidation, survival, because, you know, it's king of the fucking Monster Hunter land. And it's got stealth, because, I mean, I'm not the only one that's had a Rathalos sneak up on him. I'm saying, it happens.
Mine has stealth too.
Yeah, exactly. AC 32 is halfway between a young adult and an adult Red Dragon. Those saves right there. We talked about the HP already. The resistance, the weakness to spirit. I didn't realize they had an electric weakness still. I thought that wasn't in Wilds because I didn't see it in the Wikipedia entry that I used. So I guess we could add in electric as well. Here we go. And then immunity, I only gave it immunity to fear. Normal dragons in Pathfinder 2 have immunity to sleep and paralysis, but Monster Hunter monsters love sleeping and they love being paralyzed. So like it felt wrong to keep those immunities in. And then it does have those Paragon defenses. So if it does get paralyzed or it does get put to sleep, it can always burn the some HP to kind of flail around and wake itself up, kind of thing. All right, moving on to its offenses. It's got 3 primary strikes: its jaws, its claws, and its tail. And the claw should actually be labeled talon. And some people don't know this, but the Rathian, the lady monster, she poisons with her tail, but this dude poisons with his talons. So the jaw is just nice, strong, piercing damage. The Pathfinder Red Dragon has fire on his bite. They don't technically do fire damage in the game, with their bite, but they always have fire spewing out of their mouth, so I don't think it's too bad to keep that fire damage on the bite. I don't know, it's kind of nice. The Talon has Wyvern Venom and Trample as a tag, because later on they will come into play. That means that if you are damaged by the Talon, you will have to make a saving throw against the Wyvern Venom, because that's what it does. And then the tail has Sweep, Trip, and Trample, and that comes into play later on also. So those are like the 3 base attacks. Now, these abilities are only available on its turn. These are not the Paragon abilities. So you got Aerial Strafe, 1 action, requirement must already be airborne. Rathian flies up to half his speed. This movement does not provoke reactions. So basically just repositioning in the skies. Called King of the Skies, Lord of the Skies, whatever. So like,
Sky King.
Yeah, Sky King. Yeah, he's got all those titles. So yeah, we got to keep that in there. Aerial Tail Thrust, 2 actions, requirement must already be airborne. So already you're seeing, if you've broken the wings, you've already shut down these 2 abilities, the first 2 abilities we talked about, because you can't stay airborne with your wings broken. You have to be airborne to activate these abilities. And his tail has to be unbroken. So if his tail's broken, but his wings aren't, he can't do Aerial Tail Thrust because he don't got a fucking tail. So the Rathalos flies. At any time during this movement, it can make 2 tail strikes. Now these are just listed as 2 tail strikes, so they would get map as normal. Draconic Frenzy, just keeping a nod to the game itself of Pathfinder, makes a bite and 2 talon strikes in any order for 2 Pac-Mans. That doesn't get taken away at any point, so towards the end of the fight, that's probably what the creature's going to be doing most of the time. To kind of show that it's going crazy and flailing around. Flame Breath, 2 actions. This would actually have the Primal instead of Arcane. The Rathalos can step, so it says may step. So it doesn't have to step, but it may step, because in the game, the Rathalos does kind of step back before he does his breath weapon. Now that might seem unfair to give it a free step before its breath weapon, but this comes into play. It breathes a blast of flame that deals 11d6 fire damage in a 40-foot cone. Probably want to adjust these numbers a little bit. I think the 11d6 in a 40-foot cone, I think that's okay. I think that's from the Young Adult Red Dragon. So it's pretty manageable. It can't use its breath weapon again for 1d4 rounds, which is a standard Pathfinder thing. Creatures that critically fail this roll gain 1 stack of Fire Blight, which is discussed further down. Here's where it gets nuts, though. You might have fought a Rathalos before, and the motherfucker breathes 3 breath weapons in a row. And you're like, that just doesn't seem fair, right? Because it's like, bam, 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 right? So, to simulate that, if 3 or more parts are broken, the Rathalos can use this ability every turn with no cooldown. After 3 consecutive activations, it can no longer use this ability for 1 day. So this is stuff that when you're running this monster, you need to just tell them, right? So it breathes that breath weapon while enraged. You tell them like, oh, by the way, I'm not rolling a recharge because this is happening now. So now they know, oh my god, the next time its initiative comes around, it's going to breathe the breath weapon again. And the next time its initiative comes around, it's going to breathe the breath weapon again. So now they have to like kind of react to that and kind of build that into the evolving gameplay. Now, because of that free step, it has obvious tell. So the Rathalos takes a step back with both wings extended on the sides. Orange glow will start to form inside its mouth and it'll pull back its head, take another step backwards. Special, because this move is well telecast, affected creatures able to take move actions may use their reaction to roll twice on the reflex save, take the higher result. This is a fortune effect. So it kind of represents that Monster Hunter like dodging out of the way, like rolling out of the way, dodging out of the way of the incoming attack. Tail Sweep, 2 actions, requirement, tail's unbroken. It turns its head side to side, and this is basically a modified trample using its tail. So it doesn't get to move, but it attacks all the spaces around it with its tail. This is another one that's obvious tell, so again, you could use your reaction to give yourself advantage on the reflex save against it. Talon Assault is 3 actions. They must already be airborne, so another one that gets shut down by not having its wings. While airborne, if it flap its wings, push itself forward, then it will flap its wings once again, push itself forward to assault with both talons. Mechanics-wise, it takes a fly action, 2 talent attacks that share map, and then a fly action again. So you're getting 4 actions for 3 actions, and the 2 attacks don't accrue map until afterwards. That's a pretty standard design thing in Pathfinder 2e. And then it must no longer be airborne at the end of the sequence. So it is forced to land at the end of it. Trample, this is just a standard Pathfinder trample. Rathalos has a trample attack in the game, so it kind of translates really well into that. To add a little more spice, because trample is a little boring, if you critically fail and it's trampling with its tail, you're knocked prone. If you critically fail and it's trampling with its talons, you get 1 stack of wyvern poison. Weak roar, 1 action. Auditory, if the head is broken, the DC is 3 lower than normal. All creatures within 30 feet make a DC 30 fortitude save. No effect on a crit success, no effect on a success. On a failure, 1d8 sonic damage, frightened 1, deafened for 1 minute. Critical failure, 2d8 sonic damage, frightened 1, deafened for 10 minutes, stunned 1. And then wind pressure is 2 actions, must already be airborne. So again, if you broke the wings, can't do this. Rathalos creates a cone of pressurized air in a 30-foot cone. Creatures of medium size or less must fort save DC 30. Crit success, no effect. Success, force 5 feet away. Failure, 10 feet away and prone. Critical, forced 15 feet away from the monster, knocked prone and slowed. Now, knocked prone, as you know, in Pathfinder, knocks you out of the air. So this is sort of its anti-air move, right? Where you're trying to get up to it while it's abusing its flight abilities, and as you are kind of trying to get up to it, it's trying to knock you out of the sky with its move. So those are its standards. Those are the things it does on its turn. Then the Paragon actions are what you pay for as you're playing through. So Paragon defenses, when it uses Paragon defense, it gets to do a weak roar as part of the Paragon defense. Aerial flame sweep, 2 Paragon points. They must be able to use the fly move action, and it says wings and head unbroken. I'm actually gonna keep it where it could do this with its wings, because the wings are already gonna have its speed being broken, and then it's gonna be flying half its speed again. So this is already gonna be pretty limited down to 30 feet from the 120 feet that it could have been at. But essentially, it flies up to half its speed, it breathes a sweeping line of fire in a 30-foot cone, forcing all creatures to take 66 fire damage, make a reflex save. This one's really bad, not because of the damage, but because of the fire blight that can be caused. You get fire blight on a failure, you get 2 stacks of fire blight on a critical failure. Aerial flame field, this is the move where Rathalos fly up in the air, and then it shoots breath weapon straight down and set the ground on fire. So basically it makes a 30-foot by 30-foot square zone, 10 feet high, just full of fire. You take a little bit of damage, because at level 10, I mean, 3d6 damage, a little bit of damage. But you also get a stack of fire blight. So you don't want to be in that fire if you can help it. Aerial fireball, 1 Paragon point. Head has to be unbroken for this to work. So basically, if you break the head, you're taking away its ranged attacks. But it gets to shoot 2 flaming projectiles at a single target within 60 feet. They are reflex saves with a pretty low reflex save, 2 lower than its average. And then you do 3d6 per hit. But if you critically fail against this, you do get a stack of fire blight. So this is just to give it some ranged options, just like the shitty little fireballs that it spits in the video game. Fireball to swoop, 2 points. It must be able to use a fly movement action. So again, I'm going to just say that it can't do this if its head's broken, but it can do it otherwise. Spits out a fireball, then immediately swoops at the target. Creates a 15-foot burst within 60 feet. Creatures inside the burst must do a reflex 46 fire damage. No big deal. Critically fail, you take fire blight. The Rathalos then flies to land adjacent to one of the creatures caught in the burst and delivers a talon strike with a -5 circumstance penalty. So the reason I'm manually adding the circumstance penalty in here is because since these Paragon attacks are happening outside of its turn, they wouldn't be affected by map. So if you want to affect these abilities with map, you kind of have to build it in to the description of each of the abilities. In the similar way that like a reactive strike doesn't touch your map, these would kind of follow that same principle, I guess. And then Swoop Strike, 1 point. It flies up to half its speed at any point during the movement. It can make 1 Talon Strike with a -5 circumstance penalty. So again, because it's getting to do so much for 1 Paragon in between turns, you want to lower that accuracy a little bit because it's kind of rushing around trying to do this move. And then its traits, Draconic Momentum. So Pathfinder gives dragons back their breath weapon every time they get a critical hit with a strike, which is pretty huge. What we're doing with this Draconic Momentum is every time it critically hits with a strike, it gets 1 Paragon point. It doesn't increase its maximum per se, but it would like get 1 back. However, it's limited to once per round because God forbid it's critting you over and over again and then it's Paragon actioning and Paragon actioning and Paragon actioning. That would be crazy. That's why once it's enraged, you take away the limited once per round, because then it can actually go crazy. And I think we've all fought a Rathalos where we feel like, oh my god, fucking die already, and it just won't stop attacking. That's to kind of simulate that sort of endless rage that they get towards the end of the fight. Fire Blight Affliction is an affliction with the fire tag in addition to the standard DC 15 flat check at the end of each turn. An afflicted creature can spend 2 actions to activate a move manipulate action to remove 1 stack of Fire Blight on itself or an adjacent creature. What does it do? Stage 1, 2d6 ongoing fire. Stage 2, 3d6 ongoing fire. But here's where it gets real shitty. Stage 3, 3d6 ongoing fire, and you cannot recover hit points. Because in the game, Fire Blight does prevent HP regeneration. So the idea here is to kind of simulate that in the game and force like the strategy of, okay, we might need to hold off and get this Fire Blight under control before we go any further into the fight. The Wyvern Venom is pretty much the same. I think I just added a slowed 1 while in stage 3. It's not like the most lethal poison in the world, but when you consider the monster has all these other options for damage, it's doing this for free with its Talon Strikes. And then you could also have Fire Blight at the same time. It's pretty bad. So I didn't feel like we needed to pump the poison up, make it too crazy. So the tactics, just like in the game, it's going to start in the air if possible. It's going to abuse its access to flight. These monsters are pretty clever, so they're going to focus on anyone that's an obvious ranged attacker that's going to cause them problems. Because once the ranged attackers and the spellcasters are done, then they can land, fight the fighters, fly away if they need to, you know, take advantage of that mobility that most of the melee people aren't going to have. So that's it. That's my Rathalos that I came up with. What do you think, Monster Hunter Guru Dom?
It's amazing, and I think this is if you're adding a Rathalos to like a standard Pathfinder game, I think this is really good.
All right.
Because this also addresses if you have spellcasters and all that stuff too.
Right.
Especially with the Paragon defense. So I think this is really good. I will say this is gonna be a tough one to run because there's a lot of stuff I gotta keep track of.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
All the parts and their healths, all the different DCs for each of the things, and then keep in mind, I think the Paragon points, that's gonna be fine. That's fine. That's nothing. That's not hard to track. We've been doing that for forever. But I feel like it's gonna be a lot to track. But I think it's for a single boss, like an end of like a end of act boss. Like this is like you guys been preparing for this boss fight, and this is the boss fight. It's really good.
Yeah, I mean, I've had campaign ending bosses. The latest trend seems to be to not fight any end game bosses, but I've had some end game bosses in 5e where it was like several pages of like abilities. Like for this monster, it's definitely over designed because as like a design challenge, I wanted to address every single thing it does in the video game and see if I could come up with a comparable. I would not put the time and effort into doing this for every monster that I wanted to run using the Paragon system, right? I would have like a handful of things that it could do, maybe like 3 different Paragon actions, and that includes Paragon reactions, and that's it. I wouldn't have like this whole grocery list of stuff. This is more a design challenge for me to kind of say like, can we simulate every single thing that the Rathalos does in Pathfinder? And I feel like yes, we can 100% recreate every aspect of the monster in Pathfinder. Yeah. But I do see where you're going, right? Like, this works for any kind of monster. It just happens to be a Rathalos. But for your specific needs of running a low/no magic monster hunting game, like, it might not be what you're looking for, is what you're saying.
No, I think this would definitely work if I wanted to use a single monster.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I think this is like, for in terms of having a single monster be an epic encounter and the monster itself be the encounter. This is great.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think there's really any issues here. There's stuff that I would probably do different, but it's not that because I think it's bad. That was not where I was going. But I think it's really good.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean.
Okay. All right. So
most of the comments I had during your explanation, but yeah, so far everything's good. Biggest thing is just it's a really dense monster, so
for sure. It's gonna be it's honestly one that you'd almost want to print it out and like have like on your desk, like the cards. Where
honestly, I feel like this would be actually easier to run in person than it would be to run on VTT. You know?
Well, for sure, because a lot of people don't think that in both the digital and analog way, right? Like, I have a stack of Post-it notes right here. I would definitely be like, this is my Paragon section, this is my regular section. As the moves become unavailable, I just take those cards, I just cross them out. Yeah, I can't do that one anymore. Like, that's definitely going to be like an easier way to run it. Like the Foundry stat block for this is going to be just chonk. It's going to be chonk.
And like, I'm so used to pressing buttons in Foundry that, if I have to make a button for all the different DCs and the adjustments to like -5 and all that stuff, I'll just tell them, I'd rather just say it's -5 and then have them roll the dice and
this took me like 90 minutes to design, So like the idea of sitting down and building this in Foundry makes me want to vomit. Like it would be probably what, another 90 minutes, right? To build all this stuff out?
More.
Yeah, it'd be crazy.
More.
It'd be an entire prep session just to get this monster into Foundry.
I guess within the 5 minutes I have, let me see if I can go through the Rathalos.
Oh, did I take so? I'm sorry, I didn't mean it take so long. I was so excited. I wanted to tell you all about it. All right, go for it. Tell me about yours.
Yeah. Oh, okay, so three parts, 3 creatures. It's the Rathalos' main body, its tail, and its wings.
Okay.
The main body, dragon, all that stuff, has resistance to fire 12, all physical damage 12. It's level 12 as well.
Okay.
And then it has weakness to electricity 12, and for me, I said dragon was void damage.
Okay.
But I think spear is probably better.
All right, so
a better idea.
So we have similar stuff there. You did weakness 10.
Yeah.
Okay. And how much?
12. I did 12. 12.
Wow.
So 12.
Okay.
Everything. Yeah. The same as its level.
Okay, I got you.
It's when you look at the thing, it says the minimum is 8, the maximum is 15. So I went in the middle.
Okay, I got you.
Because putting a lot of resistance, I realize in the 2 playtests I've done for Monster Hunter, it hasn't been fun. So I'm lowering the resistance.
I do feel like it forces part focusing though. I do.
So yeah, and so the way I'm doing this now is that the resistance is a little bit less on the main body, but I'm removing the resistance on the parts, and I'm only adding a weakness, and the weakness is not as big. You'll see. So so there's that. Similar DCs like so. This whole creature has 607 HP total.
Well, how much?
607.
607 total.
Yeah. So this is supposed to be a severe encounter. It's a level 12 monster and 2 level 10 parts. Right. And so when you add all that HP together, it's 607.
Jesus Christ, dude. Okay.
Yeah. But it has weaknesses, electricity and void, and also in my Monster Hunter game, the weapons are really strong.
True.
They do a lot of damage, and so I made it so the parts don't have any resistance. Well, they don't have any resistance, and then they have weakness 10. The tail has weakness 10 to slashing, and the wings have weakness 10 to piercing.
And your 3 parts are the head, the wings, and the tail.
It's the main body. Rathalos, the tail and the wings.
Oh, okay. All right, got it. Okay.
So the main abilities for the main body, it has claws, jaws, and a range attack, which is like a fire spit, just spits fire. The claws are agile. The jaws have grab on them, and
Nice.
the range attack is does fire damage
Okay.
and has a range increment of 30.
Okay.
Its actual actions, it has so it has grab. I gave it grab.
Okay. Yeah.
It's fire. So it has its main fire breath, which is based off of the thing for it's a 13d6 fire, and it can either do it in a 50-foot cone, a 10-foot wide 80-foot line, or a 10-foot burst within 60 feet. So it has it could choose how it wants to do its fire breath, and it has the 1d4 cooldown.
Okay.
It also has the draconic momentum thing, or if it crits it can recharge. It also has a weaker version of its breath weapon that doesn't have any cooldown, and it's same thing. It's 5d8 fire.
Okay.
It's and it can do it in either a 20-foot cone, a 5-foot wide, 40-foot line, or 10-foot burst within 60 feet. And so the idea is that Rathalos is known for flying and doing a lot with his breath weapon.
Okay.
So the idea here is that it's going to be flying around and then doing breath weapons in any way, shape, or form that it needs to do to hit as many people as it wants.
Okay.
So that's what it's going to be mostly doing. Other than that, I have a couple things here. It has reactive strike. I gave it reactive. Main body has reactive strike. And then I gave it Sky King's Frenzy. So instead of Draconic Frenzy, I gave it Sky King's Frenzy. And the change here is that it strides or flies, and then it makes 2 claw attacks at any point along that flying.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
So instead of doing, a jaw and 2 claws, it flies. So I'm trying to make it fly a lot more than
Did you
it should
put poison on the claws?
Yes.
Okay. What's your poison do?
It's called Rathalos Poison, Rathalos Venom. It's 2 stages, but only 1 round. It only lasts for 1 round.
Okay.
And it does 2d6 persistent damage at stage 1 or 2d10 persistent poison damage at stage 2.
Oh, okay. All right.
But remember, persistent damage lasts until you do a recovery check.
Yeah.
So you get hit by this, you fail, you get the persistent damage, and then the poison goes away, but you're still taking the persistent damage until you do the recovery check and do it. So the way I did it this way is so that if you get hit, you still make a save to see if you get poison.
Yeah.
But the poison is not like normal poison; it's a persistent damage.
Okay. I mean, that's a little. I kind of wish poison was just treated like that, but I understand that some poisons have secondary effects, and that's why they don't do it that way. But okay.
So I mean, if you succeed the save, you're not affected by it. If you critically fail, it's worse damage. But it's not like the poison is going to. It's going to keep re-upping. You get the poison, you get the persistent damage, and then you have to deal with regular persistent damage stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. And then it's let me see here. I also gave it hip check.
Okay. Now you said that you have different parts on it. Are you doing this as a hazardous monster where the wings are going to have their own initiative and the tail's going to have its own initiative? Oh, okay.
Yeah, so right now I'm just going through the main body.
Just the main body. Okay, got it.
Yep.
All right.
It also has hip check. It targets 1 creature, and then all creatures adjacent to it needs to make a reflex save, or they take some bludgeon damage, 5d8. And then it's not a basic reflex save. It's critical success is unaffected. Successes takes half. Fail, you take full and are knocked back 5 feet. And if you critically fail, you take full and you're knocked back 5 feet, and then you fall prone.
Okay, gotcha.
You don't take double damage from this. Okay. And then I also gave it trample.
Okay.
And the trample is based off of its claws.
Now, with its trample being the claw, is there a chance of poison from that or no?
Yes.
See, I didn't know in the intention behind the trample if secondary effects would carry over, because without specifically saying that they did. You know what I mean?
It depends on the thing. So like all of the effects that ride on the strike. But like with grab, you have to spend an action afterwards. So unless they have that action economy to spend afterwards, which they never usually do on a trample.
But poison doesn't require an extra action.
Yes, and so it rides.
Man, I don't. I guess
unless you can always say in the actual ability that they aren't affected by it, as a caveat.
Like trample just says you use the damage from the strike, right? So like that's the tricky part. Like, is the secondary poison part of the damage.
I guess
right?
it depends. Yeah, I guess it depends on how you word it. If it's the
Right.
trample where it's just saying it uses the damage and they do a reflex save,
Right. That's
then
the
yes,
that's the
then it's
raw
just the
that's the
damage.
raw trample. Right. That's why I was asking
I'm
if
using-
your trample is going to specify
Okay.
that the poison is going to take place also.
So the one I'm doing is that it runs through everybody and they're all targeted by a strike.
Oh wow.
'Cause
Okay.
there's a the way there's a I think you guys ran into it. The beetle in Straight Thousands had that as the wording for it, whereas but their strike didn't really have anything extra. I guess that's the reason why they were worded that way, and that was also
I haven't encountered a monster
creature.
with trample that it uses a special move as the trample, right? It's always like the most basic strike it has that wouldn't have any confusion stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
So,
all right.
So there's that, and I think, and then it has two passives. It has carry, so if it grabs somebody, it can fly away with them at half speed, whether it's grabbed in their mouth or in their claws. And then it has blindness weakness. If it's flying and it gets blinded or dazzled,
like that.
It falls prone.
All right, I'm gonna steal that. I'm stealing that one. I like that. Okay, I'll put that under traits.
So that's the main body. And its best skill is acrobatic because it's the Sky King. Second best is athletics, and then it's intimidation, some stealth, and some survival. That's the main body. Let me see here. So the tail has a tail strike. The tail strike has a pretty high chance of hitting, and then some basic damage. It also has knockdown and it has knockdown.
Okay.
I gave the tail a reaction called tail flip. Whenever the Rathalos does the fly action, the tail can use a reaction to strike somebody within range. So that's to simulate, the Rathalos little tail flip thing that he always does whenever he's flying.
Okay.
So there's that. It has knockdown, and then it has like a tailspin, where it targets everybody within reach of it. The tail has a 15-foot reach too. And my Rathalos is huge. A huge creature.
Yep.
So the tail has a 50-foot reach on its strike, and then it has tailspin, spins around, 3 actions. It all creatures within 15 feet of it make a reflex save or take the tail strike's damage. Basic reflex save. What else did the tail have?
I did something similar with like a modified like trample, but more like a sweep. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
All right. What else? Let me see here. There's a 2-action, very strong strike from the tail, called tail smack.
Okay.
It's pretty much 2 actions. It's the tail's version. It's the Rathalos version of vicious strike. The 2-action, high damage. High chance to hit.
It boosts the damage dice.
Yeah. So and he can only do that while he's raging.
Got it.
And I have a default thing for all monsters for raging too, and I guess I'll maybe go over that real quick. If they get critically hit, if a part breaks, or they get reduced to 50% HP, they go into a rage.
Okay.
And rage gives them temp HP, increases their damage, refills their recharge abilities, and unlocks specific actions for them. And in this case, it's this tail strike that does extra damage.
I'm gonna steal that too.
Also, and this is something else about when he's raging, his jaws also do fire damage now. When he fire splash damage, 6 splash damage, fire splash damage when he's raging.
So this is every time it's critically hit is when this.
Every time it's critically hit, it can rage. Yes.
All right.
And the rage lasts for 1d4 rounds. You cannot end it voluntarily. Right. Okay. Let me see here. And I think that's really all for the tail. And then the wings. The wings have. Also, it has an 80-foot. I gave it an 80-foot fly speed.
Okay.
And then when the wings break, it goes down to 40.
Okay.
So similar to what you have it with the half, but I didn't give it 120.
120 is. Yeah.
I'm thinking
because your Monster Hunter game, they're not going to have the same mobility that a party with spellcasting and Okay.
So I think 120 is good for like a full game, like high level and the boss dragon type of thing.
Mhm.
It's a little lot. It's a lot, but I think it's
Bro,
it's okay, especially if you're
180 is bananas. Like
Yeah.
180 is bananas. Like I couldn't believe that when I read that in the Red Dragon stat block. I was like, that's crazy.
Oh, I forgot to say one more thing. He does have okay, I'll say this after I go through the rest of the parts. So the wings, the fly speed, on my thing, when the wings have a turn, they can also fly. Use their action economy to fly. So he can move on his turn, or he can move on the main body's turn. He can also move on the wing's turn.
Okay.
But the only thing the wings can do is fly. So there's that. The wings have a buffet 3 action. They push everybody away from them for a fortitude save. They have a wing attack where they try and smack somebody with their wing. They can they use an action to give the parts cover, so the main body and the tail cover. And then what else here? As a reaction, they can if somebody becomes adjacent to the Rathalos, it can push them away as a reaction.
Okay, with the wings, yeah, that makes sense.
Wings,
Buffet, yeah.
Let me see here, and the strike has push on it. So like if you hit them, then you can shove them away.
Okay.
Yeah. So the tail has knockdown, the bite has grab, the jaws have grab, and the wings have push.
Nice.
Which is the knock away. So there's that. So now that all the parts are thing, there's the signature attack from the Rathalos, which I call Sky King's Fury, and then I'll go into the signature stuff that related to that for the other two. So the Sky King's Fury, what it does, 3 actions. The two other parts have to spend 2 actions to set this up, and once it does, the Rathalos 3 actions. It flies up to its speed, leaving a trail of fire within its wake. All the areas that the Rathalos flies under becomes hazardous terrain and burning. There's fire there, and everybody who it flies over gets affected by its main fire breath attack. And so they have to do with additional effects on their save. So if they succeed, so they normal the fire breath again, it's 11d6. Is it? Hold on. Is it fire breath?
I think you were saying it was 13. Yeah.
13d6 fire damage, basic reflex save. If they succeed, they take half of that damage, but they take 2d6 persistent fire damage. If they fail, they take the full damage, the persistent fire damage, and they fall prone. If they critically fail, they take the double damage because it's a basic reflex save. They fall prone, they get stunned 1, and they take the persistent fire damage. So this is his signature. It takes all the parts to spend action economy, and for him to do it. Then that's like the Teostra's explosion, and they're
so
like,
so there's build up for it, and they can't do it if any part of it's been broken.
Yeah. So there's that, and now that hazardous terrain, the wings have an ability with that hazardous terrain where it has a 2 action where it can move the hazardous terrain. So it buffs its wings and pushes the fire, because the hazardous terrain is fire on the ground. It's like a wall of fire.
Yeah.
So the hazardous wings can push the fire out of the way, and then the tail, any strikes that it makes through the hazardous terrain also add the persistent fire damage to the tail attack.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And I think that's it that I got. Yeah.
But with this monster following the hazardous stuff, when the wings are busted, there's no more additional flying during its turn, right? That you can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
And then once the tail is busted, there's no more tail economy at all. It doesn't get anything as compensation for that. Well, other than the raging from having the part.
Yeah. Every time a part breaks, it rages. Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna say, having fought one of these monsters before in a playtest, I think that my Rathalos could be fought in a 3-hour session, admittedly start to finish. I think that your Rathalos would be 2 or more sessions, 2 or more 3-hour sessions.
And that's the reason why I got rid of so much of the resistance, because I think that's one of the main reasons why it takes so long, is because not only the parts had resistance, but also the main body had a ton of resistance. And also when the parts break, the resistance goes away. The 12 resistance goes away, so it goes down to 6, and then it goes down to 0. And so yeah, there's a lot of, there's a crap ton of HP in here, but I feel like it could be done in 1 4-hour session. I think so, especially now that I reduced a lot of that resistance. I think it could be done, especially if people are more familiar. Like everybody's very familiar. Like this is like not a one shot where everybody's also learning their characters at the same time, and we're all everybody has their characters. I'm familiar with the monster because I made it, and it's been building up to this point. And then the players are all familiar with their characters, so we actually run really well. We're not going through any issues. I think from start to finish, it could be a 4-hour session.
Okay, I'm gonna doubt, but I mean, if you're gonna go through with this Monster Hunter campaign, I guess we will get to see. Yeah. Because you can't have it without a Rathalos, you know what I'm saying? You gotta have Rathalos in there. So.
I didn't have a Rathalos in the first one.
I know, it was really sad. It lost all credibility immediately. Let's see. I think overall, both designs kind of prove that there is room for improvement on the Pathfinder 2e boss experience. The Red Dragon, the adult Red Dragon, is no slouch. It's a cool monster. It ain't even close to as cool as either of these Rathalos designs. It's not even close. So, like, I do think that GMs should feel a bit more empowered. I do wish there was, like, guidelines, like, to kind of take the bosses even further. I know Butler Log is doing a lot of work with the Mythic rules and content, and I'm sure there is stuff in there that we could have tapped into to further enhance like the boss experience quite a bit. But I think my big takeaway here is that I think we're closer than ever to getting this stuff to really gel, and I don't know. I'm excited. I'm excited to see all this stuff play out on the table. All right, we ran over because I ran over my time, and I still wanted to hear what you had to say, but I'm super late for dinner now, so I have to go.
Yeah.
Hope everybody has a good night. Good luck hunting monsters. Good luck rolling D20s and all that jazz. And we'll probably be back next Friday doing another VODCAST, and all our normal games are happening on the server. And if you want to join up and play some video games, the link to our Discord is in the description on Twitch. We'll see you then.
Ready.
All right. Night, everybody.